We're here today with Raleigh Wasser of the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and we're talking about rare and unusual herbs that you should know about.
Yeah, that's right.
What's the first one that you want to talk about today, Raleigh?
First one I want to talk about is lemongrass, which we've got growing right here. So you use lemongrass in Southeast Asian cooking.
Where a lot of the flavors in lemongrass is down towards the very bottom, and it changes throughout the season. There's a difference between spring lemongrass and fall winter lemongrass. It gets stronger as it ages. And so what I like to do, I love cooking, and I love cooking with lemongrass, and also like making teas out of lemongrass.
Yeah, it's got medicinal properties too.
It's very versatile, actually. You think about where could you use those flavors? And I think about, where you would want like a pop of bright, like kind of lemon acidity. It's the same way that I use sumac in cooking.
Yes,
you think about, hey, I want that kind of citrus pop.
Yeah.
And they are super simple to use. I peel the outer leaves off.
Definitely do that. You want to get to the kind of the more tender inner core of the stalk, if you will. And it has this amazing lemon flavor, of course, in the name lemongrass, but it also has kind of some hints of ginger and maybe a little bit of mint, which is why it's great in Southeast Asian cooking, where it's native to that kind of area in the world.
So is lemongrass perennial for us, or does it behave more like an annual?
In places colder than zone 8B, definitely consider it an annual. In zones up to 8B, root hardy, so it'll come back year after year, and really it's a complete perennial in zones 10 and 11, really tropic zones.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, it's one that I think everyone should play around with in cooking, but you have to use it sparingly. It's kind of like using cinnamon in cooking. You can have too much, and lemongrass is the iconic lemon pledge flavor. Lemon pledge is lemongrass more than, say, lemons, and so if you overdo it, wow, that tastes like furniture polish now.
And in that kind of same vein, it has some like antimicrobial properties, and maybe that's why originally
very well could have been.
Maybe that has a nice tie to it.
Absolutely. Raleigh, basil is one of my favorite herbs, and I love to use it in almost every dish. I probably actually use it in dishes that basil typically would not even be found in. And there are so many different types of basil, and one that I think everyone should know about that maybe they've not grown in their garden is Thai basil. Let's talk about that one.
So we've got some Thai basil right here. It has these beautiful purple flowers, but really what you grow it for is the foliage. The foliage has a kind of licorice flavor to it. It's also used a lot in Southeast Asian cooking.
It is meaningfully different than any of the purple leaf basils or Genovese, and you do get that kind of licorice. There's that woody, almost like even like a gingery kind of aspect to it.
When you harvest, obviously I mentioned you don't want to harvest the flowers. You want to grab the leaves, and really they're so tender and the aromas are so volatile. You want to kind of harvest it, early in the morning, but as late in the game as possible. So maybe right before, if you have a plant growing as an annual, which it is,
right,
out of your pot in the kitchen, grab a leaf at the last minute of your recipe and put it in, because you don't want to simmer this. It's not going to be as pungent.
Does the flavor change when it blooms?
Yeah, and so we're here growing at the Atlanta Botanical Garden for ornamental purpose, and that's why we kind of let this bloom. But really, since it's the foliage that we're after, when you have it at home, keep it pruned back and don't let it bolt. Really keep it in that foliage state for as long as possible to keep it, have the most pungent aromatic flavors, because you want to keep all those aromatic compounds in the leaves rather than sending all that extra energy to the flower.
Raleigh, I remember as a young gardener discovering that I can actually grow my own bay plant, and as someone who loves cooking, it was a revelation that this beautiful evergreen plant that actually is fairly nice in flower. It's a little bit of an innocuous flower, but you can have fresh bay leaves year-round, especially if you live in the southern states.
Correct. And usually you find it in the little jars, like a few leaves in a jar, and it's pretty expensive, and it actually goes really well for zones 8 through 10. It's a perennial evergreen, perennial or tall shrub actually. And then if you grow above 8, colder than zone 8, bring it indoors. But it's really easy to grow. It has this beautiful evergreen leaf. It's kind of leathery. It gives a nice, like a woodsy, warming quality to stews and soups and kind of more of those heavier dishes.
Yeah, you can imagine like a nice marinara or, chili. Of course, you have to have your bay leaves in chili.
Yeah, when you don't have it, it's missing something, and that's bay usually.
Right. It's true of all herbs. It's never better than when it's fresh, or there are very, very few examples of an herb that would be higher quality 6 months, a year later.
Yes.
And fresh bay leaves, I think, are especially important And it's such an easy plant to grow, and I mean, you can maintain it as like a hyper manicured shrub if you don't want it to get big, or let it be an accent piece in your garden.
Definitely. Really easy to prune this plant. We let it get pretty tall, but it's easy to prune, and unlike lots of other herbs, you don't want to chop bay up. I'm sure you know this. You don't want to chop bay up and throw that in. You want to keep those leaves whole so you can remove them because they do not break down like other herbs.
That's right. You'll run into a little bit of a chewy surprise. Well, Raleigh, thank you so much for spending the day with us. We've learned so much from you, per usual, and we look forward to our next visit to the garden.
That would be great. Yeah, can't wait.
Awesome.